Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, we welcome Jasan Radford to the podcast. You might recognize Jasan as the frontman from 2000's new metal post-hardcore band, OneSideZero. VH1 called OneSideZero's debut album, Is This Room Getting Smaller?, one of the 12 most underrated new metal albums. Worth giving it a spin if you haven't heard it. For me, it's in the vein of bands like Helmet and Quicksand, maybe even Chevelle, more than it is new metal. But you listen and let me know in the comments. Jasan has a brand new project called CenterShift, and it's the perfect encapsulation of 90s alternative rock. Jasan chats about his musical history, signing with Maverick Records, reuniting to a scene that no longer existed, and learning to navigate the shifting musical and social media landscape. Jasan's episode is the 300th chapter of As the Story Grows. The first episode I did as full-time host was chapter 137. And so that means, if my math is correct, that I've hosted 164 chapters of As the Story Grows. The very first episode of As the Story Grows that I worked on editing the show was chapter 74. So it's been a long ride for me. It's crazy to think that this is the 300th chapter, and I'm super stoked that it gets to be Jasan Radford and this great conversation. If you enjoyed this episode and what the podcast is doing, the best way to help is to share the podcast with your friends and inside your social media circles. If you haven't subscribed or given the podcast a rating or review on your podcast app of choice, please do it. It helps to get the show in front of more listeners. You can subscribe to our mailing list at asthestorygrows.com. I try to share music recommendations, book or comic recommendations, plus it's the best way to keep up with what's happening on the podcast week in and week out. And a special shout out to Ben Pike, Josh Spencer, and Recovery Rebels, our Patreon members who help the show out financially and keep the lights on. I appreciate it. You can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. We're going to start doing a monthly Zoom hangout/listening party to chat about music and hang out with Patreon members. This conversation with Jasan was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed getting to make a new friend, and I hope you guys enjoy getting to know Jasan Radford from CenterShift.
Of me, I keep upon the shelf. I can blame nobody else. The distance you've shown, is it something more? Soon you'll forget. Soon you'll forget. Soon.
How you doing?
Good, brother. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Doing good. Yeah, I'm excited to chat. I've been jamming the new singles, jamming the back catalog.
Right on, thank you.
So it's been awesome. It's been rad. You're out in California?
Oh, yeah.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
That's awesome. What was growing up like for you?
A lot of surfing, a lot of skateboarding. California,
Yeah.
We have the kind of the best of all worlds. We can see the snow and the ocean and the mountains in one day, the desert,
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. I mean, traveling the world and being all over, it's been amazing, but California's home for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I imagine surf and skateboarding, that's what got you into music and playing.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like it's a calling. It just kind of hits you when you're young and kind of becomes your everything,
Yeah. Yeah. What was that initial deep dive into music for you? What made you a fan and made you want to play?
I got, punk rock, I was a kid, it just, they were saying the things that I felt, you know what I mean? The angst and things is just growing up and, being an adolescent and not knowing how to express it and be like, oh, I can do it like this, just really influenced me in my thought process of how to relate to things. So of course I played drums first and, got to smash You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would get a lot of the angst, and then realize that, hey, I got songs in me, and I've got ideas, and so I started learning, going to open mic nights, and watching people play guitar, and I'd hear a chord that struck me, and so I'd go home and practice that one chord forever. And I go learn another one and practice that other chord. So very self-taught. And then I realized I could put melodies to it and kind of sing, and, words were kind of dumb in the beginning, but just what you felt, and from there it just kind of kept going.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Writing and recording music at a young age is like the most awkward diary of like how dumb or silly you might have been at one point in your life. It's like, oh man, I can't believe I wrote that.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere. So it's all honest and real. So it is what it is,
Yeah. Yeah. Once you figured out you could play guitar and write songs, how soon were you like, all right, let's start a band and let's do this?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to be rock stars.
Yeah.
Battle the bands and everything possible, at backyard parties and anything you could do. And, but for me, playing punk rock, that time it was, there was the East Coast hardcore and the West Coast hardcore, and everybody was trying to play as fast and as hard as you can. And that's what it was,
Was that always your dream, like rock star, major label success, or were you just like wanting to be in the punk rock hardcore scene?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Early in some of my career, we passed on deals, or, it was like, it's corporate, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. And then looking back, it's like, I think we were too, bullheaded or hard-headed to some of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you're young and you have that animosity, I think that's the way to go, so it is what it is. But never thought about being a rock star, thought about just playing music for people and making it a career, was really my goal. So
that's awesome. What was that transition from punk rock and hardcore into OneSideZero?
The lyrics are all this, or the meaning and the whole point of it being the same. But I think that we learned how to play our instruments a little bit better, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just kind of realize, just the songwriting grew. And as you expand your mind, and if I wasn't so just into one genre of music that this is all I listened to, and I started expanding my listening to things and open my mind, everything started to come together. And then it made sense to play with, Levon, the metal guy, and I was the punk rock, emo guy before it was even called emo.
Yeah.
And I think that we're all kind of in one way an emo situation or thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have bands like Far and Deftones and all that stuff. It's just people singing the truth, you know what I mean? Being emotional and singing honesty. And I think that that's where that all got created. So learning to play the instruments, and I think expanding my mind in music in general to other artists really kind of opened up the door of creativity and writing,
Suicide, something's missing. I'm bound in flesh, you can't run. They're all is alive. Who's waiting in control? They've left envy, they're all alive. She was searching, and so you followed her own suicide. It never showed me. All that was true for me. I'm not like you. Open your eyes. I drank from your mind.
Was there a sound or style you were hoping for, especially with that like debut record from OneSideZero? Like, to me, it feels very influenced by bands like Helmet or Quicksand and kind of that like post-hardcore genre. Even it's funny that like VH1 called it an underrated new metal record, and I'm like, this isn't new metal at all.
I know. Yeah, we got lumped in that, which was, at the time we were like, what the hell's new metal? But it's cool to give it a name, really is kind of what it was. A lot of the bands were coming out with that. And I'd say for me in the 90s, a lot of my bands, my band previously to OneSideZero was called Blueprint, and it was very influenced by the post-hardcore stuff. And I would say that that's where a lot of my process went into just being more musical. But bands that were influenced like Fugazi, definitely Quicksand, Helmet, you know what I mean? But the beauty of that record was we didn't really set out to do one particular genre or style. You know what I mean? We got lumped into what it was, and so be it. But, we just wanted to go write a beautiful record, and be honest with it. And I feel like it came out that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you guys end up on Maverick Records?
Weird story. So Rob, the drummer, and I worked at Immortal Records. And, when I say work there, we basically played Half-Life all day. And that's all we would do and send out Immortal merch. And then, I was going to start directing music videos, and we went in with Jim Wirt and did a demo, kind of just for like our last show for fans and kind of thing like that. And it started getting some hits, like Sony Red started coming around, and some different labels, and we were like, oh, this is weird. I'd always loved Maverick because of what they've done with the Deftones. The Deftones career has always been very healthy, and so when they came, we were like, oh, I kind of like this, you know what I mean? And this could be a family. We weren't about the rock star or the money or anything like that, and it was definitely like that. But we played a showcase at the Viper Room with basically all the labels came, and rest his soul, Chi, we all had sushi. It was me and the label with Danny Strick and some of the people from Maverick and Chi from the Deftones. And he just turned to me and he's like, dude, if you want to be with a family, this is where to be. And that sold it for me.
That's awesome.
And, that was it. And the band, we all agreed, and this is where it went, because the bidding war or things like that, we didn't want to be involved in that. We wanted to, go on tour and put out records and have a cool career,
Yeah. Was it tough getting pigeonholed or stuck in that new metal lane where it's like the scene exploded and there were like the big bands at the top, and then it was like all the labels at a million bands they were trying to push in a similar sound, and it was just like a sea of bands that were not the same, but were all being marketed the same?
I mean, I think we got lucky with it that we were able to, our touring history to go range from Zebrahead, Sprung Monkey to 311 all the way to Soulfly and Static X. You know what I mean? We fit in it, so I can't be mad at it. But there were a lot of bands that got lumped into that I think that even their direction, if you listen to demos of bands, it was very different than what came out on the record. And it was like they were trying to chase that genre, chase that scene, and the scene should have just been able to create itself. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of bands that had longevity or were able to do it after the labels or after that genre kind of mellowed out, I think they created their own, longevity, and that's why a lot of them are coming back.
Was it helpful that you were on a label like Maverick that like had a band like the Deftones that like maybe believed in the artistry more than just like selling records, where you could create your record and have it sound the way it did? And not, I mean, did you feel like you were able to create what you wanted to create? Yeah.
I mean, the label is going to be the label. They're going to pick out songs that they think would be right. It was a very interesting time with 9/11 happening, I mean? So our first single was supposed to be Instead Laugh, but the opening line, and it's not talking or about suicide, it's more of a metaphor, but we couldn't put that on the radio because of 9/11. So New World Order was the first choice, and I liked it because it was a little harder and heavier than Instead Laugh to come out, out of the gate. But that affected things. The label had a plan. You got to go with the label because they've been doing this a lot longer than you have, But yes, they were very open to our artistry, which was cool. I think some of the punk rockness, creeped in, and like we were very steadfast about this is what we want to do. And I think that, in hindsight, you got to work with your label, Maverick was very artist friendly. You know what I mean? If you look at all the artists they had, everybody from Michelle Branch up, it was, very open to what the artist was about. And, they gave us our wings, and, it was a weird time to come out with a record, but I think that we, luckily, to the fans and people that have supported us and been, in the family, like, it definitely gave us a little bit of longevity that we're here today talking about OneSideZero.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah. What led to the band disbanding there? And was it like 2003?
Life, families, Levon got married. Brett ended up getting married a little while later. Just kind of, things just went on. We were pushing and pushing and pushing, and the industry was changing so much.
Yeah.
Forming into what it is today, kind of, which is still changing. What I mean? So I think that we just got a little tired. We needed a break, and so we'd come back and do a reunion show here or there and like a little run. But I just think life it just came to its pass. What I mean? Like, we're all great friends. I think that I don't know. It's a weird one. It's not anything negative. It's just life happens. And that's what One Side's always been about. And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to beat the dead horse of trying to keep this alive. It is what it is. It's had a great run. We have great people that we've met, what I mean, and amazing, we call it the family, what I mean? So, of all the One Side fans, and we can't be more happier than that, but for each of us, music goes on, we do other things.
Yeah, when you did the self-titled record, the kind of change in trajectory in songwriting, was it just a maturity and just like the passage of time, or were you actively looking to do something different on that record sonically?
I think that for us, we always wanted to do, different. So if there's a lot of B-sides and unreleased stuff that's out there on the internet, and you can see the kind of transition and changes we were doing because we wanted to keep it fresh. And this record, we didn't go in, thinking let's make a total more metal record. Levy was very influenced. We were playing in a band called A Bloom, and that was with Mikey Doling from Snot and Soulfly, Roy from Soulfly, Marcelo from Soulfly. So A Bloom was very more metal and like that, and I think that he brought that over to the new record. And we went with it. What I mean? The inspiration was there for him and for us, and we got inspired by it. And working with Ulrich Wild was amazing. So I think that record was pretty awesome as well, and different. It was very metal compared to Is This Room Getting Smaller? But everybody's got you're a family, you're a team. What I mean? And so if someone's influence, you got to respect it, and go with it. So
yeah, it's a cool the trajectory and like the way the guitar sound on that record are really cool and very different. And it's got a cool vibe. Like in a lot of ways, it reminds me of like Chevelle, like the way their first record sounds to the way they sound now. Like it has that vibe. Like you can jump like the middle part.
Right. You know what?
It's very clean.
Yeah. The early record came on for Chevelle the other day, and I was like, wow, man, I haven't heard this in forever. And then what is it? Red came on. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, what the difference? Such a difference.
Yeah. Listening to the discography is a little bit like that. And what just kind of happened? Like, I mean, that record came out on a smaller label, really self-release and pushing that on your own. Was it just like difficult to reintegrate into the scene at that time?
Oh, it was brutal. I mean, there was no scene, I mean? And here we come out with a record and trying to do it on our own with Corporate Punishment. And there was no real money to do the things that you need to do to push a record. And we tried to tour it, and fans were there, and we couldn't be more happy about that. But yeah, it was really hard. It was brutal. What I mean? And so that really kind of beat us up too. What I mean? It's like, we didn't want the whole industry to win as far as we stopped doing this because we couldn't push it or do it. But it was hard, really, really hard. And so comes back around that Ulrich Wilde started his own label, and so we re-released it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it did a little better, but the band at that point wasn't able to tour. You know, people had their own personal lives that wasn't going to be able to push that record as much. That I wish that we had discussed that in the beginning, but
yeah,
you never know. Life is it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Is that what led to this new project?
Yeah. Mike, so one side we kind of took it, and then Ted from Bemis and I have always kind of put things together. Ryan from Shovel and I we were in a band together called the Knife Outline very shortly, and but we always wanted to play together. So putting this together just kind of happened organically. You know, Ted and I started writing, and then all of a sudden we had like 50 songs, and then you know, using Mike to come in and do the drums, you know, it just all started clicking. And then Ryan was obviously, we needed that second guitar player, you know, because we were just a 3-piece at first.
Yeah.
It just wasn't pushing the power that we wanted, you know what I mean? So this was the, you know, Ryan was gracious, and he was the obvious choice, you know, for me. And now it's like the chemistry and the beauty is just amazing. Unfortunately, Mike has had to leave the band. He's got life, you know, things. And I don't think that, just personal things, you know what I mean? So we teamed up with our old drummer from Blueprint, Stefan Strachey, and now it's all clicked exactly what needs to happen. You know what I mean? It's
That's
less
awesome.
of the progressive and more of the emotional and the feelings of the songs that are coming out. We're going back to Cleveland to record more for the record.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, this record has some like 90s, like early 90s emo alternative rock vibes on it. That's different.
That's kind of where I came from, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what influenced me and back then, and I was like, you know, this is what came out, and this is what we were feeling, and we went with it, you know. And so it's 90s rock was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that were amazing. So I mean, amazing bands, you know what I mean? And which is rad that I touched on before, that I think is going to be cool for a lot of people and younger, this new generation that didn't get to see them before will be able to see it now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Where'd the name CenterShift come from?
I feel like band names are all about life. So everything's been so crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, we'd started with, I was like, let's call ourselves One. And then I thought that was way too presumptuous or way too ego in a weird way, you know what I mean? And I wanted to decided to stay away from anything that had to do with OneSideZero or that kind of thing. Just let it be an entity. And so, you know, we started looking at names and we throwing things around, and I was like, well, what do we feel like? And Ted kind of was like, you know, I feel like things are shifted, you know, life is shifted and this. And I was like, CenterShift, you know what I mean? Something where we're based in your soul, you're based in the middle, but things can be a little offset, you know what I mean? And so to me, it's like a way of thinking, you know, you can be a little nutty, you know what I mean? It's CenterShift.
Yeah. How have you watched the musical transition from like being on a major label where, I mean, you guys were pushing CDs back in 2001 to everything is basically it's on you, like the label helps distribute and can help with physical media, but I mean, it's all Spotify, Bandcamp, YouTube, like everything is on you to produce and it's all digital. Like, what has that transition been like? Do you find it easier to just be like, all right, we got this kick-ass song, let's put it out there and like everybody can hear it, as opposed to like, all right, we got to go in the studio and write 12 and be like, this is our package and this is how we're doing it, you know, trimming the 50 songs down to 12 or whatever?
Yeah, it's there's a similarity still to what it was like before, and there's the ability for people to get the music is completely easier, because it used to be physical samples that people would pass out at rock concerts. Well, that's kind of coming back. I don't know who has CD players, but Rock Rage Radio is very supportive to bands and smaller bands and larger bands. You know what I mean? So they're putting out a sampler this summer for all the festivals, and I don't know if it's a digi sampler or if it's an actual physical copy, but I think that's really cool. So I know when you play shows, people want a physical copy, maybe not to listen to, but to have. So there's still that, which I think is cool, and that's why it's important to put the lyrics in there. You know what I mean? People want to know and be a part of the band, and the song that they like. But everything is so easy to get that makes it cool and easy in the beginning. But it's still all about we're learning as old dogs coming in, going algorithms and this and that. How do you catch the people and the playlist and getting on that? So in a way, it's much more difficult too, because everything's so spoon fed, with TikToks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we have to learn every day. The marketing side says, you need to be on TikTok. And I'm like, all I see is booty shaking. I don't know what TikTok, you know what I mean? I don't know anything, the music. And they're like, oh, it's right here. You got to do it like this. And so for us to learn that, it's fun, what I mean? But it's definitely different. And it's a little bit difficult to break it. I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to break it now when you're on your own, because there's still the money factor that's behind the scenes, for radio.
Yeah.
So far for CenterShift, each single's done well at radio, and we really appreciate that. But it's a lot, you have to constantly stay on it, every day. And that's why people spend thousands and thousands of dollars to have these social media people help, because not everybody's savvy at it, and it feels like it changes every hour,
Right. It's like you can't just have radio push the single and be number one. You got to be on Spotify and have it pop up on social media, or like
totally, yeah,
whatever other avenue is popular at the moment. That like
at the moment it was Spotify. Now it's like no, fuck Spotify because of what they're doing, and it's crazy.
Before we talk more about CenterShift, I was curious about some of your other musical projects. How'd you end up doing the Power Rangers theme song and working on the Digimon movie?
So once I was talking to labels, and it kind of just came to me, Saban Entertainment, they do all their own music and stuff like that. And so they asked me if I wanted to come in and do, it was one song for the TV show for Digimon, and my little brothers loved it, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll go do that. That sounds great. And so from that, I got they asked me to do the 3 songs on the record for the movie, and I loved it. It was great. Totally out of my wheelhouse, because it was a lot more, it was for kids. So the lyrics were very straightforward, and we're all going to run around, And I thought it was really cool and fun. And then when they asked me to do Power Rangers, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So that relationship was rad. It was kind of a fluke, just kind of came at me. Didn't look for it, and I loved it because it was something for kids, and you know what I mean. It was it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What was it like trying to get a new project going during the pandemic?
That was tricky. We were doing a lot of stuff through Logic, and then sharing files, and then we had to make sure Mike was very susceptible to getting sick. So we had to, if we had sessions here, we bought electric drums for him. And then, I'd sanitize the whole house and clean it. And we'd all social distance in my house and do that. And so it was tricky. And then we went out to Cleveland twice, during it and during COVID. And thank God nothing, everything was, it was hard,
Yeah.
But if you have a dream, or if you have the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, or a desire, then you push through and persevere. So it was interesting, I'll tell you that. But that's where all the songs came from. We were able to write so many songs because we had nothing to do. We weren't playing shows, we weren't touring. You know what I mean? We had a session, the recording was coming up, but we knew all we had to do was just write. you know?
Yeah.
And so that was cool. But yeah, it was difficult. You know, there was no rehearsal studios. You know, we had a couple that we were able to later as, you know, COVID would die down a little bit. And then we'd sneak in and get in there and try to rehearse, you know, with masks on and crap. But
yeah,
it was what it was. I mean, it was hard for everybody. But you look at it now, people stayed home and look at all the bands that are coming out with great songs. You know what I mean? They're all got records. You can't get a booking agent right now. And I'm really good friends with TKO. And because everybody came back and all the bands that, you know, are on these agencies are like back and ready to tour, you know what I mean? So it's just crazy, but it's rad because now there's going to be such an influx of amazing music coming out, you know what I mean? For people to get, and bands that, like I said, you know, that people maybe never got to see are back, you know what I mean? And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Everybody kind of sat around and was like, well, maybe we have another record in us and
totally
you could do it again.
Yeah.
Back in January, when you released the second single, My Own World, on YouTube, you said it's from the impending album, A Different Shade Of. Is that still your focus? Like this year, we're going to put out an album. You said you're going to Cleveland to record some more songs.
Yeah. So bringing in Ryan and now the new drummer, Stefan, we felt that it was only right to have them on the record because it was just the three of us that did the record previously. So we're going back. We wrote a bunch of new songs. Everybody's inspiration is fired up because it's new blood. And so we want to go record some stuff that Ryan has written. He's going to be on the record. Stefan will be on the record. So it's just the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Keep it, because we split everything down the middle, you know, the percent. So like they get cuts of my lyrics, you know what I mean? We just keep it all like that. One side was like that. Everybody's working for the same goal and just as hard. So it was just the right thing to do. So what we decided to do was to break it up into three pieces. So the EP release is coming. We're going to announce that soon. So we're going to do the first EP, which is called A Different Shade, Different Shade ... And then the rest you got to wait for.
All right.
So little singles that are going to be dropped in between that. But yeah, we're doing a lot of cool stuff. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
So the EP, and there's going to be a lot of stuff for people if they enjoy the band and enjoy the music, that at the end of, but all is going to come out this year. So at the end of the year or at the final release, it'll be something I think that's cool for everybody. I hope, you know, we hope. We're just doing what we can. You know, we're being honest and writing, you know, from our hearts and just trying to keep it real, you know?
Yeah. Are you going to release like 3 EPs digitally, Spotify on Bandcamp or whatever? Just like these are the EPs, and at the end of the year, it'll be one like vinyl LP or CD or something. Is that the
basically
goal?
That's basically the goal. But do it cool, you know what I mean? Where it's something for, you know, if you did buy the EPs, that kind of thing, you're going to get what you paid for it and more, you know, kind of cool stuff with that.
That's cool. You mentioned how like the pandemic and the world around influenced like the songwriting and the lyrics. Like, what were you writing about over this time?
A lot of how I wrote for One Side, but a lot of experiences have gone on between, you know, when the band slows down and this is all you've known for most of your life, it's a change, you know, and so there's a lot of that in there. There's life-changing things. I got, of course, one day all of a sudden I was so frustrated with doing Zoom meetings or things like that we wrote a song. It's called Waiting for Summer, because the pandemic was going to be over in summer first time. So it's a pandemic song, but I think that there's more to it than just what's there. You know what I mean? That it's not so cookie cutter, but yeah, it's life, you know, it's like what I went through. It's what we all collectively went through in different songs, you know. The song Kingdoms is really epic, and you'll see, I mean, there's definitely, because of me being one of the writers of One Side, you know, and I think that you're going to get a lot of that same vibe and feel from the record. But also it's CenterShift, you know, because these guys are definite different entities of just rad creativeness, you know what I mean? The guys that are in CenterShift. So Ted and Ryan and now Stefan.
Shows the cracks that have grown on my skin. Shattered knuckles and veins filled with sin. It's the wall you replace with faith
Yeah, we got to work with Jim Ward again, and it's really amazing. Tallulah from Grumpy Plum, who's based out of Cleveland, they're amazing indie band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were in the studio, and it was our last day. The band had already flown home, and I was waiting for my flight or until I had to go to the airport. And she came in, and Jim was like, "Dude, you got to hear this girl, and you got to hear this band." And I was blown away by them immediately. And so when we came back to do the second part of the record, I was like, "We got to have her on the song. How cool would it be to have her on the song?" And it's just pretty rad. So I think, and I hope people enjoy when it's all put together. I know it's really hard with singles because it comes out like, here's this one, and then here's the hard one, and here's this and that. You know what I mean? But I think when it's all put together, you'll get the point of what CenterShift's about, like OneSideZero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could set things up a lot cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come out. Now it's like, get it out there. You know what I mean? And try to be creative on how to put it together. But I hope that we appreciate everyone giving us their ears at least. And I hope that they see the magic in it or something in it,
Yeah. There have been so many bands or records where I heard the single and I'll be like, it's okay. And then you hear the record and you're like, oh yeah, no, that works in context and it's better all put together than just like piecemeal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really where it's at. It's hard with bands like us because, Is This Room Getting Smaller for OneSideZero? It was literally 12 days in someone's life,
right.
Finish. And so out of context here, with all the singles, it's like you're not getting the pieces. You're only getting pieces of the puzzle and not even knowing what the picture is.
Yeah.
But I hope people stick around to get the whole point.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.